What's going on, everyone, and welcome into my Las Vegas Raiders draft guide. I will be doing every single NFL team, picks 1 through 100, and going through up to 4 prospects per pick per team. My goal is to hit 50% of these selections. Now, when you go and look at other mock drafts, you'll see they hit about 10 to 20% of selections. Why is that? Well, it's because every team, every player is only assigned one team or vice versa. And this is the problem. You're never going to hit more than 20 to 25% of your picks if you're only giving out one pick. My goal is to quadruple the amount of selections and double the success rate. I want 50% of these selections to hit accurately. If it does, then this will be a cool new draft method going forward. But to start here, we're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders. The way that I analyze this, let me explain real quick. I started with identifying each team needs. I then found their selections through the draft. I then tracked every single 30 visit as well as visited every single page of source information to find 30 visits that I didn't see, as well as pre-draft workouts, pro days, and on top of that, combine interviews. And as you can see here, using NFL Trade Rumors, CBS, and Walter Football, you will find all of that information. Now, conglomerating all of this, I also then took an average of every single player's rating on DraftBuzz, ESPN, CBS, NFL, PFF, and I had a conglomerate average, and then here is the overall rank of where these players placed on average. So as you can see, Fernando Mendoza is the consensus #1 overall player out of all of these different websites. That being said, let's go back and let's begin with the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's identify their team needs. The red means that they really need it. Orange means they need it desperate. They need it not as bad, but pretty bad. And then the yellow means it's more of a supplemental piece. Doesn't necessarily have to be added. So for the Raiders, I think we all identify quarterback as the #1 team need on that team. And we obviously know that they're going to be fixing that with the #1 overall pick. Then we have wide receiver, tackle, defensive line, corner, and safety. Now, the defensive back group, I think, is good enough to start this year, but you would like to see them try to develop a little bit more in the secondary with some younger players. I think that they'll address that later in the draft, but let's hop into the selections. So with the #1 overall selection, the Las Vegas Raiders decide to go with none other than Fernando Mendoza. This has been one of the easiest picks that you could possibly have to make. I believe the odds right now for Mendoza to go #1 are -10,000 on any sportsbook, maybe even higher than that. Mendoza just fits the system well. Not saying that he's Tom Brady, but Brady is making a lot of decisions here for the Raiders. And one thing that he loves is a quarterback that nails timing, accuracy, and can play in the clutch. And those are probably the 3 greatest attributes that you could apply to Fernando Mendoza. He fits the system perfectly. Clint Kubiak is a timing-based guy. He is not a scramble playmaking quarterback type guy. He wants a quarterback like Sam Darnold who can sit in the pocket, make accurate throws, and make good decisions. And so far, I think Mendoza, there's no other quarterback in this draft that could do something like that. Could the Raiders trade back? Possibly, but I think we'd hear a little bit more noise about that before we get in, before we got into the draft. I think the draft now is 8 days from now, so this is not a probability here. The most likely outcome is Fernando Mendoza is the #1 overall pick. Now we'll talk about the Raiders here at 36. Some prospects that I have applied to them are based off of their 30 visits, pro days, combine interviews, all of the sorts. And of course, when you go and look at this prospect ranking, you have to identify prospects that are in the range. So if I was going to say, well, the Raiders at 36 are targeting Sonny Styles, that's just not going to happen. Sonny Styles is consensusly let's take a look. Sonny Styles at 11. He is the 10th overall graded prospect. He is not falling to 36. So let's be serious. So with the number 36 overall pick, I think the 4 targets that the Raiders will be looking at are Caden McDonald, the defensive lineman out of Ohio State, Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington, Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M, and Christian Miller, a defensive lineman out of Georgia. Now, once again, looking back at these team needs, wide receiver and defensive line are two of the four biggest team needs for the Raiders. And my idea or thought process behind this was, number one, the Raiders really didn't interview a lot of offensive tackles that specifically fell at this particular point in the draft. So I don't think they would be targeting one of them. Secondarily, wide receiver. Now, this is a worry for me. Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston have been very high demand players in terms of 30 visits, in terms of private pro days or private workouts, as well as combine interviews. They're currently respectively rated 24th with Boston and 29th in Concepcion on my prospect list. If we could scroll down here, the numbers on the left here are one more than their actual ranking. So Avion Terrell is number 19. Keldrick Falk is number 18. You guys get how Google Sheets works, right? But here we see Denzel Boston is 24 and Casey Concepcion is 29. That is a little high on the end. I don't necessarily think either of them will fall to 36. If they do, I can almost guarantee you that the Raiders would shoot for those two prospects. That being said, though, I am looking at the fourth selection, Christian Miller, defensive lineman out of Georgia. This is the one that I really think that the Raiders will target here. He is only ranked as my 44th best prospect. But based off of the combine interviews, the 30 visits, and the pro day attendees, Christian Miller is one of the most high-demand second-round graded prospects on this entire list. I think he's had over 18 different meetings, visits, setups, whatever you want to call it. I think the Raiders will end up selecting Miller based off of availability. Caden McDonald, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion will most likely be first-round picks, in my opinion, based off of a couple of mock drafts that I've done. So the only player of these four that would fall to pick 36 would be Christian Miller, but we'll wait and see on that one. Next up, the Raiders have pick 67. If we go to our team selections here, we see 67 is next on the clock. So let's go ahead and talk about what the Raiders will be looking for here. Once again, if I'm correct and they pick Christian Miller at 36 or one of these other players, I think the four targets will be Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver from Alabama, Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver from Georgia, Chris Bell, the wide receiver from Louisville, or Ted Hurst, the wide receiver from, I believe, Georgia State or Georgia Southern, either or. This is where the Raiders have to get serious about drafting a wide receiver. Like I said, I don't think a premier one is going to be available in the second round. And even if they are, I do not doubt the Raiders would try to go get more weapons for Fernando Mendoza. It is really important that they target the position here early on in the draft. Like I said, this is not a premier talent draft. This is a kind of high potential draft where you have a bunch of prospects where you can see their highlights, you understand their low floors, and you just hope that you draft and develop the right ones. I think that's what the Raiders end up going for here. All of these players, going back and looking at my prospects list, I think Chris Bell lines up. Zachariah Branch here at 54. Chris Bell is right here at 61. Let's see. Ted Hurst actually has fallen just a little bit. This is more of a safety pick. Let's go. Ted Hurst is at 85. So at 67, you're going to see a lot of these players either shoot way up or fall way down in this draft. I think this is kind of a stretch here from the 85th overall prospect to go 67, but I would not be surprised at all. And then last but not least, Jeremy Bernard, I believe, is up here at 48th overall prospect. Some people have him higher, some people have him lower. As you can see here, Draft Buzz has him at 58. I believe that's ESPN has him all the way up at 33. I think that is pretty damn high. But as you can see here, another place, let's go and take a look at who is that. The NFL Network has him down at 58. This is a high-low draft, right? You can see prospects. As you can see, there's a lot of variances here. Like, for example, Brandon Sissy, I believe, is how you pronounce his name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Projected all the way up at 36, but then falling all the way down to 61 and 66. there's a lot of variance in this draft. So trying to identify the correct picks here is unbelievably important for me. All of these players had combine, pro day, or 30 visits with the Raiders. It seems that they're going to be targeting a lot of wide receivers. So let me know what you think of this draft guide in the process. Like I said, let's go and do a quick little recap here. The Raiders' #1 overall pick, Fernando Mendoza. That's a hit. 36, I think it will be a selection between Caden McDonald, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, and Christian Miller. And then at 67, it will be Jeremy Bernard, Zachariah Branch, Chris Bell, or Ted Hurst. Let me know what you think of this draft guide. How many of these am I going to hit? Once again, we're doing 100 picks. We're trying to get 50% of them right. Let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.